Greetings, folks. What's going on? Jason Damico here. You are back watching the Jason Damico Show, or listening to the Jason Damico Show. If you're on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Simplecast, blah blah blah. And this is a long time coming. This special guest, hilarious, very talented. We've had a lot of great exchanges through the gram and through other social media connections over the years. But our guest is a mezzo-soprano organist originally from Durham, North Carolina. She's currently based in Baltimore and about ready to graduate Peabody Conservatory with her bachelor's in voice performance coming up in about a month or so. And she's performed for John Williams. She's done stuff with Boston Symphony Orchestra, Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, North Carolina Symphony Orchestra. A lot of orchestras, a lot of talent. Please welcome to the show my good friend, Miss Marie.
Hello.
Herrington.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be here, Jason.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
You are extremely unique in the sense that you've got the classical background, you've got the operatic background, but you're also a rocker, which is dear to my heart, being a rocker.
That's great.
Let's just talk about, we can get into that obviously more, but I want to go back even further to your beginning stages as far as organ, vocals. How did this all start for you, the whole music career path?
You know, I really do feel like this has been a long time coming. I started playing piano when I was 3 years old, but this was not something that I was forced into at all. It was one of those situations where my grandmother was taking care of me and she did not quite know what to do with me at times. So she would just sit me on the piano bench and just be like, go to town. But a person that young of age, their brain just soaks up information like a sponge.
Right.
So that's when I developed perfect pitch. I just began playing the piano like all the time, and I started playing by ear. And rock was actually my first love, more specifically classic rock. And I was playing classic rock songs and classic pop songs on the piano probably beginning around 5 years old or something like that. But the music lessons didn't come in for a few years. There just came a point where my parents were like, okay, well, maybe we should put her in music lessons. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. But rock was for sure my first love, and classical music is just something I have a background with. It is also one of my loves, but it definitely was not the OG. And I don't know if you saw recently on my Instagram page, but sometime pretty soon I'm going to be taking requests for specifically classic rock tunes that people love, and I'm going to be making piano transcriptions of them, and that is going to go up live at some point soon, but stay tuned. But anyways, so the piano was happening for a while, and then at some point I started taking voice lessons, and that was when my musical theater and classical voice training came about. I think the natural tone of my instrument, it just suited classical music and opera more specifically. And so that opened a whole nother door for me, essentially, just with those capabilities. Organ was very interesting because I had never touched the instrument before. And then one day, randomly, music director of a church I belonged to back in high school was like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. Can you do my job for me one Sunday? And I was like, all right, so I'm going to learn this brand new instrument in a week. That was crazy, but it happened. And I was self-taught on organ for 6 years. And then I had my first organ lesson ever last year, actually, with a famous organist named Jeremy Filsel. He's also a famous pianist. He does a lot of really cool work. So I've been playing organ professionally in churches for the past, it's been like 8 years now, but I haven't had an actual lesson until a year ago. But
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Done. That's it. You guys have been watching the no. No, it's cool. So the what like pipe organ? Because you play pipe organ too, right?
Yeah. That's the kind of organ that I play. I mean, I can do some little keyboard, Ray Manzarek, anything. Well, not anything, but I do definitely.
Ray's my guy. Ray's my favorite.
He's my guy too. You know, actually, I used to look a lot like him when my hair was blonde. I put on my glasses and had that blonde hair, and I looked like Ray. Yeah. Oh gosh, what a talented group of musicians, I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
the Doors were huge for me because Jim is the same vocal range, you know. So for me, like in the rock genre, there's a lot of tenors, as you know,
yeah.
vocal ranges,
Mhm.
and it was hard for me to really do a lot of covers or sink my teeth into certain songs without having to change the key. But the entire Doors catalog was perfect, you know, the timbre and whether he was ripping into the higher end of his range or more of the softer, clearer mid range, lower range. It's like
Mhm.
this is perfect. So he literally, and even after like musical theater, because I did a lot of musical theater, and that was more like pingy, kind of like mixed voice, and I wanted to get away from that because it wasn't really me. I didn't want to write songs with that sound. So like Morrison, I just sang to his stuff for about 3 or 6 months when I was like 18 or 19, and I kind of like retrained myself off of him. Incredible vocalist, just like so good.
Absolutely. Oh, I love him so much, and I wish he was with us. And
Yeah,
I didn't realize until recently, which is stupid, but Ray Manzarek plays all of the what would be the bass guitar lines on the keyboards.
yep,
And I don't know why that didn't dawn on me that there's not a bassist in the Doors, aka a band I've known for years.
right.
Like, yeah, ugh.
Well,
And
you know that a lot of the records do have bass guitar on
mm,
them.
yeah, there's some confusion for sure out
Yeah,
there.
but live, for the most part, yeah. Until maybe like the last year of touring, it was all his left hand,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Oh,
frightening. Like it's just
exactly. Yeah, groups like the Doors, they kind of remind me of slightly different versions of bands like Rush, another very like
yeah.
multifaceted, versatile band where you have Geddy Lee playing keyboards and then bass at the same time, and both are really insanely good. So it's just like,
And
but
singing.
oh yeah, let's not mention that Geddy Lee belts higher than me. Let's just put that out there. Hello world. I'm a classical singer. I don't really belt like Geddy Lee does, but you know, a girl can try. Yeah.
When when did you start finding like a creative voice beside it sounds like you had a really good ear from an early age. I know you're into arranging. I'm sure you write your own material to a certain degree.
Mhm.
Uh, Walk me through that process, how that started for you.
Well, it's very interesting. I consider myself one of those persons who has my feet in way too many ponds at all
You
times.
and I both.
Yeah, you know, it makes for a more interesting life. So that's what I'm all about.
More drama
Oh,
and self anguish.
absolutely. All of those things, which ultimately makes it more interesting.
Right.
But one of the things that I didn't mention earlier that came about like in my middle school years was I had such an interest for composing. I was just like, I think my biggest worry was the future of classical music. And this still is a worry to this day because currently, as we all know, it's a dying art form and it has been for years. And the heads of those in concert halls, they're just graying more and more, and people who like our field, you know, they're just dying. So we have to do whatever we can to revamp the situation and just like
Yeah.
make this art form more applicable to people. So I think that is what originally drew me to composing, because I was just like, oh, I kind of want to sort of maybe get good at this and, see, like you said, put my own voice into it and see what I can do with it. And I wrote my first orchestral piece ever, I believe when I was 13, and it was garbage. It was not good. It was so bad that I called it Bad Christmas Medley because, a lot of Christmas medleys already sound bad. And if you have one that has bad in the title, it's double bad. It's like, whoa. But, yeah, so that was that. And then I wrote mainly choral music from then on out, just because voices were a thing that I was just always surrounded with. I have a huge choral background and stuff like that. But when it came time to going to college, I was like, I need to seriously narrow down my options. Am I going to be a composition major or a voice major? And it just made all the sense in the world for me to be a voice major instead of a composition major for career purposes. I mean, it's really, really hard to make it as a composer. But
you don't need a major to do it.
That is exactly my other point. I know so many really, really talented composers who are living awesome lives, making bank, like who just got lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. It's not a matter of like having a degree. It's about the opportunity and more than anything, what you can put on the table. What have you got to present to the world? But when I was in college, as if I graduated yet. But a couple years ago, I started.
While still in the dorm.
Yeah, I was
literally.
Yeah, I guess that is the word I'm looking for. But I took a computer music class, and that introduced me to software like Logic and Ableton and Maximus P. And I wrote my first. I was playing with Logic for a minute, and I still am right now. But I wrote my first piece that had an actual performance for it, and it was a piece for 4 voices. That and live electronics, so like Maximus P. And it was a really, really cool experience. I pretty much took a situation where it was like I made 4 people sound like a full choir, if you know what I mean. But like, yeah, there's just like so many cool things that you can do with the technology here before us. And this quarantine really sucks, but I feel like it also forces us artists to put ourselves in these situations where, we gotta be up to date with the times, especially people in my field.
Yeah.
All these classical musicians, we're just so used to being in a concert hall.
Right.
Like the closest thing I have to like actually good technology is a semi-decent microphone that has been ordered and is being shipped to my house. So it's just like, we're all just like trying to figure out what to do in this scenario. But I mean, people need good art now more than ever. So this is totally the right opportunity for artists, especially ones like myself, to just revamp our whole thing, Yeah,
it's total adaptation at its finest.
Yeah. I know I totally went off the rails. Fun fact about me, that's just how my brain works. One thing to the next at all times. I think
it's good. It keeps things interesting. I think that'll be the word for this interview. Interesting.
I really think, I think you're right.
I'm just stealing it from you.
Yeah, no, steal away.
You're a genius. You're brilliant.
Thank you. I don't think I've gotten to the level yet where I can call myself a genius. I think I have to accomplish a few more things first, but we're trying. We're for sure trying.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All you can do.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, and I saw a little, not to bring Ray Manzarek up and beat him to death, but I saw one of the Instagram videos of you doing Riders on the Storm, and piano is not my first instrument. So, but during quarantine, I've really been kind of getting back with it and picking up like blues harmonica and just playing around. And putting both hands together, I want to hear from you, like over the years, how have you done that successfully? working on parts, whether it's classical or just by ear. Just kind of walk me through that, because I know that a lot of people struggle, including myself. I'm just more interested selfishly for me. This question is why I'm asking. I don't know, but I was just curious to see, like, when you run into struggles, like, do you just really slow it down and play with both hands, or is it more of just kind of like dibble dabble and then eventually it works?
Right. So, interestingly, you bring up piano. My biggest struggle has honestly been with the organ, because you have three parts going on at the same time. You have a whole keyboard for your feet, and for me, sight reading organ music is really hard, because like a normal music part has one staff that you sing on. So like you just one set of notes. But for the organ, you have three. You have left hand, right hand, and foot pedals. And the amount of like brain activity that is going on within while you're trying to do that, it's like running a marathon for your brain. It's like it's crazy. But I definitely would say take things slow. You're gonna like mess up at first. You just have to like get your brain adjusted to the feeling. I think that's the number one big thing. And with piano, it was really hard for me. And this is when I actually started taking lessons, and it was really beneficial, because prior to taking lessons, all of the arrangements of music that I had been making was just like left hand plays 1 3 5 3 1, and then the right hand plays the melody. But now I'm getting to the point where I can have the melody in the left hand while the pinky is playing like some bass note down there, and then the right hand is doing some extravagant thing. Like you can just build on what you do, but your brain has to be comfortable with that initial discomfort, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a huge weird dichotomy that makes no sense, but it actually will like shut up. It will like lead to all the happiness in the world when discovering how to play the piano. And with my training, I was learning like Bach fugues and Bach inventions and stuff like that. So you would have like a piece of music where both the right hand and the left hand play these very melodic things that are independent from one another, and your brain has to simultaneously focus on phrase shaping and a moving line in both the left and the right hand. And with a two-part invention, it's only two voices, but then you get into a fugue that has 3 or 4 or even as many as 6 voices at once, and you have 2 hands that are playing all of that, and you just have to like focus on it. But I really do think, though, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and having your brain adjust is the number one thing. I don't think musicians realize, especially with singers, just how much psychology goes into
so much.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So much.
Absolutely.
And and it's frustrating for me because like I trained on drums and percussion classically from 98 to 08, from 4 to 14 essentially. And then after that I was still studying, and any fretboard instrument that was self-taught, and it came not like easily, but it came naturally to a certain degree. And just, I don't know, to me, it's less to think about, but that's my brain. A lot of people, they pick up a guitar and they just start squirming. Everybody's wired differently. But for drums and, jazz and double bass and everything, rudiments, all of that, working through all of that throughout my early years and my teen years, playing piano now, it almost puts me back in that mindset of like rewiring the brain. But if it wasn't for all of that background, obviously it would take a lot longer, because if I stick with Riders on the Storm for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, it does start opening up. But you can't, it's like tunnel vision. It's weird. Like I can't think about it. It's like as soon as you start thinking about what your fingers are doing differently, that's when you screw up.
Absolutely.
So it's just, I'm used to like 4 limbs doing things independently, not like 10 phalanges. It's really, really unnerving.
It's a whole nother animal. I always say that. It's a whole nother animal for sure.
I don't know how you do the feat with the I would have a meltdown.
Yeah, when I first started, I was like, I will absolutely never be good at this. And now I do kind of like what I said earlier, with playing the melody in the left hand. When I play hymns in church, I play the melody on the feet. So I go like ba 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 ba, like left right left right left right. Da, 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 da. It's literally like tap dancing for all these people every single Sunday morning. But I love it to death. It's one of my favorite things that I do right now.
That is nuts.
It's crazy. It really is tap dancing. Yeah.
How has Peabody been as far as the experience? Because you've been there for your entire college career, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for sure. Peabody has been wild. I think most students can say about like music school in America. It definitely has its ups and downs, and for sure, like conservatory in particular, school has been weird for me ever since freshman year. I started working a lot outside of school, so it was really a tough time trying to understand how to juggle gigging and, you know, actually having a performance career, because you can't just put a university on your resume. You have to have actual work experience.
Yep.
So I started working with a couple of outside of school companies and like opera companies and stuff, and just like doing like other restaurant work and like whatever I could to pay the bills. And currently that's what I'm also doing. But the education there, it's really amazing, like what you can experience at this type of school. Like, I was very fortunate. I got to meet two really fantastic organ teachers who gave me a fantastic education. Shout out to Dr. Daniel Awney and Dr. Jeremy Thistle. Love you guys. And then my voice teacher, Steve Rainbolt, I really felt like he was the diamond in the rough for me. So like having his private like mentoring was so essential to just like my whole career development and everything of the sort. But yeah, this type of school though is generally a pretty cutthroat environment. It's not a place to goof off and have fun. It is for sure though a place to explore the creative mind, and that's exactly what I did. That's why I wanted to take a computer music course, and I took a couple of composition lessons as well. I was just like, you know, might as well. And the teachers there, they're so willing to help. Like they're just so fascinated with young, interested, like musicians who just want to further their education. And I think that goes for every teacher in every country. You know, they love it when students want to learn, and they really get fulfilled when they can enrich the lives of other individuals. And I for sure got that out of this institution, but also just like getting to work under all of these masters is amazing. Like the conductor for the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, Marin Alsop, she's a professor at my school. And sometimes I forget that. Like I'll see her in the hallway, she'll say hi to me, and I will be like, I'm wearing pajama pants right now. This is a goddess right here, and I'm in pajama pants. Like, what is happening? Like, this is not, I'm not in this dimension right now. That's but yeah, it's a very surreal experience. And the guest artists that come to the school, they're crazy awesome. Very recently, I got to work with a very, very famous mezzo soprano. I don't even know what she calls herself, soprano or mezzo. She can honestly do anything. But Dawn Upshaw, she's absolutely phenomenal. And I remember freshman year being incredibly starstruck when one of the most famous bass baritones, Eric Owens, I ran into him in the elevator and I literally dropped to my knees and I was like, oh my God, Eric Owens. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm okay, I promise. I'm just a huge fan. Yeah, it's just like an environment like that. It's so surreal. And
right.
It sucks that we have to finish with online courses, but I'll be real, I'm pretty gracious, or I'm pretty thankful, yeah. uh and it's very uncertain now if they're going to even have classes next year, with this
Yeah.
pandemic. A lot of schools are planning for, having the next entire school year be online, just because we do not know how this pandemic's going to pan out. So yeah, I'm lucky to be graduating now, I feel like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, speaking of the pandemic, I had it down as it was towards the end of the interview. I mean, we can scurry back if there's a couple other things that come up, but future plans for you and regarding COVID, uh, maybe you can tie that around the future of classical as well. Although that's not ultimately what you do, it's definitely a part of you.
Right.
Um, yeah, just your thoughts.
Yeah, so this is an incredibly challenging time for me. And it's funny, I had been talking about like my vision for the future of music, or like neo-classical, just music in general, for such a long time. And I've always thought, our world is becoming more and more digital. And, we as individuals, we need to adapt. We need to change with the times. We have a just ever-changing world around us. And it only makes sense for us to do so if we want listeners, if we want to have an impact that is great on so many people. But I say that and I look a little bit like a hypocrite, because I've spent so much time focusing on my schoolwork and then my work outside of school. I feel like this moment that we're in right now, it kind of shook me in a sense. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of now forced to do what I've been thinking of, which is just go completely digital. And in a sense, I'm at a loss for words. One thing I've been brainstorming has been like a concert series, but of course I need to get the right equipment and everything like that. I don't
Yeah.
want to make any tragically bad looking recordings or anything of this sort. But like you said, my whole upcoming season, it's been canceled. I was originally supposed to go to Bulgaria this summer to sing in an opera called Die Fledermaus. And
Woo!
yeah, that got canceled. But all of us who were supposed to sing there, we were invited back for their 2021 season, which we were all very gracious for. And
Right.
just all we can do is just see what's going to happen in the world. But I don't know if you've been keeping up with my Instagram, but I've been starting to have more like pretty random like live videos and stuff like that. I had the co-workout with me, which ended up being like a huge, like very entertaining thing. And now I am having this sort of, I want to make it more serious, kind of piano transcription live video where I just play a bunch of like rock songs for somewhere between half an hour and an hour. But yeah, I think this is the perfect time to brainstorm, and I definitely want to do a live concert series at some point. And I also want to just like, it's just this is yeah
Yeah.
ah like
Yeah.
I really could do a number of things at this point.
Yeah.
Just, people need us right now more than ever, I really feel like. But at the end of the day, us artists, we're people too. And a lot of us, we're not getting paid right now. I'm fortunate. I'm still making money, but it's very little in comparison to what it would be otherwise. And all we can do is just see what the people need. But I really, really do like the idea of live concerts. I think that is a brilliant idea. Pretty much everyone is forced to be in front of a computer screen right now. If people were denying our lives being completely digital in the past, well, now they can no longer deny it, because essentially everything that we do happens online. So, yeah.
How do you personally feel about it?
Well, oh my gosh, I think that is a very, very tricky question. Uh, I I mean, obviously, I don't feel good. Everything is really unsettled. I was preparing, not only was my opera canceled, but I was going to do a recital about a month ago, actually, and that got canceled as well. And it's just everything that I had been preparing for such a long amount of time, it just all immediately evaporated. And there came a point in time where I was like, well, what do I do now? Now I'm at a loss of words, but yeah, it's a very unsettling time. But I think during unsettling times, we can find more vulnerability within people. I think people who are emotional, they're more vulnerable, and therefore we have more room to impact them emotionally. And that's actually how I feel about playing for funerals. It's one of my favorite gigs to do as an organist. And I much prefer it over weddings because weddings are just some stupid party. But a funeral is a bunch of very emotional people gathered in a room together, and their hearts are just open, and there is so much room for love to come in and fill their souls. And I just feel really, really good when my music can uplift people, and that's how I feel playing for funerals. And ultimately, that is also a weird but very true thing that I would like to bring to the table somehow during this time. I
Right.
want to cater my music to my listeners, to my followers. I want to adapt myself to being what the people need. And this goes to one of my life philosophies. I've just always seen musicians as servants to society. Not only are we servants to society, we're servants to music in general. And like our forefounders are people who put this music, this beautiful thing here before us. And it's not that we are less than human or anything of the sort, but everything that we do, there's no ego involved. We constantly live to uplift and enrich, and music is one of the most powerful forms of communication, in my opinion. There's just so much you can do with it, and it's our jobs to uplift and enrich. Doesn't necessarily have to be happy music. That's where the enrichment comes in, but there's a huge message that gets communicated with music, and us being all digital now, that doesn't stop the communication. It just gives us more opportunities for brainstorming and creativity. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I've been thinking of that for years. It's my life philosophy. I do music because people come up to me and they say, you know, I've had such a terrible week and I really kind of was going on a downward spiral, and then I heard you sing and it just like filled my mind with something that I needed to remember. And that is what I live for. That statement right there. That's specifically what I live for. But yeah.
Wow.
You're just too nice.
No, you're just too eloquent with the way that you phrase that. That's I mean, you got to remember something. I've shot over 60 of these episodes. I've never heard I've heard a lot of great things on the show. I've never heard anything that well said, that inspiring. Seriously, that's like that inspired me. Not that that's like a big thing. Not that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that came out wrong, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
that just touched places that I didn't even know were part of me.
Oh, you know, that's what I live for. Yeah. Oh, I feel like the famous Pink Floyd song, "Comfortably Numb."
Oh, so good.
Premise of it is sort of what we as people, what we as adults kind of get really wrapped up in. The child is grown, the dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. No, guys, we should not be comfortably numb. We should be there is something greater that we have to remember. And I think it is my job as a musician to remind people, don't be comfortably numb, be comfortably enlightened, be comfortably enriched, because life is so beautiful and music in itself is such a beautiful part of life. It has to enrich people. So yeah.
It was just, wow. Okay. Well, in the spirit of that, yeah, enlightenment, spirituality, your thoughts on it, and the relationship with music, just, you know, any experiences that you want to touch on. Curious to hear your thoughts.
Oh my gosh, yes, this is a very crazy topic for me, and I grew up religious, but now I'm at the point where, even though I do believe in God, I do believe in the archangels, I have personally decided to separate myself from Christianity as a whole, just because as a church organist, I find myself in so many different environments, and I don't know if all of these things appeal to me. All that I know is sometimes I get just like a little bit of an awakening from, you know, this type of like, just anything that happens in like a religious setting. And it makes me wonder so much about what is beyond, and everything that we don't have the brain capacity to begin to discover as humans. And I for sure believe in a greater power, and I believe that belief does come from the fear of the unknown. And the fear of the unknown is so great, whether certain people want to acknowledge it or not, we all have it. And no matter how smart we humans become, we just don't have the brain capacity to discover just all like what goes on in the universe. Like, obviously science and technology is really remarkable and amazing. We've discovered so much, but we just will never be able to see what's fully out there. And that's where faith comes in to play. Not everybody has to have faith, but for me, what drove me with religion and what made me go, I believe in God, I believe in XYZ, was very madly specific spiritual experiences that I've had at a young age. And for sure, there have been so many times when performing music that I just had these moments wash over me that it felt almost spiritual. For example, when I was singing in a choir setting, a piece called A Child of Our Time by Michael Tippett, which is a piece that is comprised of spirituals, and the whole piece was written about Kristallnacht, and it's just super, super emotional. I performed it with the Choral Society of Durham and the Durham Symphony, and conducted by Rodney Wynkoop. I love you, Dr. Wynkoop. But yeah, it was just amazing. And I remember being on stage with every single person in the choir, and there came a point where all of us were in tears, all like 60 or 70 something of us. There were tears in our eyes. And yeah. Man, I think things like music in particular can show us that there is something greater than tangible humanity. Like, why do humans have epiphanies? Why do humans have very random signs that make no sense, that just come out of nowhere? Why do we have moments that tell us this has to be a sign from God, there's no other way? And I've had countless moments of that, whether they're related to music or not. I just feel like it's my job as a musician to bring those out and essentially make music an opportunity for those moments with other people. But you know, faith is a really amazing thing, and my current beliefs in God tells me that God works in mysterious ways. And even though, like I said earlier, I have detached myself from Christianity as a whole, it doesn't mean that it's out of the equation. It just means that I want my relationship with God to be personal, because every single building that I'm going to enter for work, I'm going to need to adapt my thinking and my speech and just everything that I stand for to whatever that church stands for. So I want to make sure that my own personal journey does not get interfered with in regards to this, or vice versa. So that's
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, you kind of made me think a little bit on my own experiences, and I've had many where, and I'm bringing this up to find some sort of relevance, but have you had those moments when you're playing or you're performing or, whatever, and there's literally this moment where you just can't do any wrong. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like you're just reaching for things that are beyond you're just totally present and in the zone, and you just know you're not going to mess up. It's really strange. I don't know why I'm going down this road, but some of the things that you said kind of spurred this off, and I don't know if it is exactly relevant, but your thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the power of improvisation kind of does that.
Right.
People who know me as a musician and know the kinds of work that I do in churches, I mean, I love performing other people's music, but I'll be real, most of the music that you will hear me play is something that I wrote myself, and it's something that's very natural to me. Especially when I started playing the organ, I was just pretty much writing all of my preludes and postludes, and because it was easy for me to do that. I have a huge background with playing by ear and improvisation and stuff like that, but sight reading was the problem. 3 stabs at once, like I was saying earlier, that was a huge issue. That was like very, very different than what I had done in the past. And I really do agree with you. You're in a moment where nothing can go wrong,
Right.
because music is such a powerful language that, and I hope nothing that I say sounds corny to anybody, because if it does, honey, you gotta understand, like, there's a reason why I say what I say, and it's because it actually rings true. It's just like, music is such a specific language that speaks to every individual differently. And what especially comes from my heart and comes from my brain, I feel like it's just a thought process, like every thought process can be inevitably flawed here and there, but you cannot say that it's not beautiful, because it is creativity, it is creation, it is something being molded, it's just some beautiful thing coming about. I get really like all trippy, psychedelic, hippie, like whenever I talk about this stuff. But I mean, it's just really like, it's about putting the brain in a situation that, we're not used to. In this society, we're used to working in cubicles and having really like strategic lives laid out for us. You wake up, you do this, you go to bed, you are a part of the machine. Welcome, my son. Sorry, I can like reference so many Pink Floyd songs when I talk about this stuff. But like, gosh, it's really amazing. And I do a lot of improv in churches along with writing my own music. It's more comforting for me when I've played something before, or something that I've at least written down before. But I mean, the magic of improv, it's really amazing. Like, look at jazz musicians. Jazz musicians are like going above and beyond in every single way. They're just like, they really show, I think, what it means to just be so creative and so original on the spot, but also just like to be such great collaborators with whatever ensemble they're performing with, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap up before we get to the last little bit, I've got a couple of bullet points here. Some of them you already covered. struggles for you, and you can go into as little or as much detail as you want, up to you. But just curious to hear about maybe some of the major struggles. This is a very tough industry, as you know, especially now. Um, whatever you want to talk about, whatever that inspires for you to talk about.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, honestly, that's the biggest pill to swallow with this field. Musicians have inevitably just like way more stressful lives than most people of any other field. We're essentially unemployed at all times. We're just constantly looking for gigs. We always feel like we're in the job search process. And I think the scariest thing is, you will have people who have a really nice 9 to 5, like Monday through Friday, all the jazz that is probably lined up for them for the next 5 to 10 years or so. For me, I don't even know, well, obviously now I don't know what I'm going to do, but in the past too, like even if my season wasn't canceled, I would not have really known what I would be doing, what I would be performing in August. So it's just like, we
Right.
don't know what the next 2 months holds. We just kind of have to go with the flow, and we have to be really, really good at going with the flow in just about every single scenario. And I personally, like in the opera world, I classify myself as a mezzo soprano, but that doesn't really hold any kind of prominence. I do a lot of gigs as a soprano as well, and I just also kind of like to say I am whatever you want to pay me to be. You want me to be a bass? It's gonna be tricky, but I'll be a bass. Marie, basso profundo. That's me. But no. There's just a daily struggle in this field, and I'm still at the point where I'm trying to find my own voice as a musician. Like, do I want to have a long-term standard opera career, or do I want to do something more inventive? And I definitely think I would like to go down the more inventive route, because like pretty much from everything I was telling you earlier, it is a desire, it is a goal for me to make this field more applicable and accessible to the general public. But also just like, even if what I create is not specifically neoclassical music or just like a reproduction of classical music, whatever it will be in support with the fine arts. And I think that is something I stand for very, just very much so. The fine arts has always just been a very like exclusive, almost inaccessible field. It's only been accessible to those who come from such a state of privilege and financial wealth, and even just like location wise, like growing up in North Carolina, it was really, really hard for me. I like would travel all the way to New York to have voice lessons with someone who I just like really wanted to study with at the time. And it's like, even someone who lived 2 hours outside of the city, that's already way 10 times more convenient than like what I was doing. There's just so many people in these like not really metropolitan areas, like just very rural areas, who just don't have access to these things. And I think that's a huge deal. I just think we should not do anything to promote us being even more exclusive than we already are, and not to mention even more elitist. A lot of people have a hard time understanding, but music is for everyone. It's not just for the people who can pay for it. It's for fucking everyone. Like, oh God, I just like, and when I started teaching private lessons, I only charged very little, because my whole motive was, I don't want to take from people. I want to give back. I feel like music should give back to the community. And I think if I do continue being a private lesson instructor, which is for sure something I do want to do, I will continue charging very little for lessons, because I want to give my conservatory education to talented minds, young brains who just would not be able to access it otherwise because of its exclusiveness. And I think there's just so much we can do in the world if we're not worried about capital as much. But yeah. This whole field is a huge struggle though. But there came a point where I sat myself down and I was like, look, Marie, at the end of the day, you would rather be doing nothing than music. You would rather be doing music than literally anything super, super, super lucrative in this whole entire world. And that's just kind of what it is. Music was my first love. Like I said, in particular, rock music was my first love. But no matter what I do in this field, it's gonna be this field. Like, I'm not gonna leave this field anytime ever, I don't think. And if I do, then just meet that person and be like, yo, what the hell happened? Because I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon, seriously. But yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Oh yeah. It's really tough for all of us, but yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah.
This last little bit is, I call it like the shootout or the popcorn section. And I just say a word that's specifically related to your field in the industry. And you just say a word back that first comes to mind. Judgment-free zone. No right or wrong answers.
Great. I'm ready. The pressure's on.
Pressure is so on.
Yeah.
All right. Organ.
Pipe. Could make a joke right now.
Classic. Yeah, you can. I was gonna go that route, but
I don't want to. On any dating profile I've made, I heard all the one-liners related to my field. Just every single thing you can imagine. But yeah.
Rock.
Psychedelic. Psychedelic rock. That is I do
A laugh at the end.
Yeah.
Blues.
It's not one word, but the first thing I think of is really interesting scales, like the blues scale.
Flat five.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Classical.
Opera.
Performance.
Anxiety.
Piano.
Covers. It's what I do.
Composing.
Choral music.
Stage.
Performing.
Studio.
Lessons.
Mic.
You don't want to know what the first thing that came to mind was, oh my God, it needs to come in the mail. But that was the first thing that came to mind.
It works.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Bull City. Mm-hmm. Yes, I love Bull City. My heart is always in Durham. But yeah.
Maryland.
Crabs. And not crabs like what you would think someone has before you sleep with them. Crabs like the edible kind.
Right.
Yeah.
Opera.
What's the word I'm looking for?
I was gonna make a really bad joke. I stopped myself.
I kind of want to hear your bad joke because the first
it has nothing to do with opera. It just has to do with what you previously said. No, the moment's gone. Forget about it. You say yours. It's okay. Gone.
But yeah, well, the first thing I was thinking in regards to opera was soprano, which is pretty lame, but
Well, no, it's relevant.
Yeah. I was thinking more along the lines of divas specifically. There are just far too many divas in our field. And if you don't agree with me, then maybe you are part of the problem. But
no, I agree. But I still probably am part of the problem.
Oh, no. I didn't mean you in specific. I was thinking to the viewers, whoever I'm going to send this video to, if you sit there and go, we're not divas. We're good people with just huge egos. And I'm like, okay, you guys.
There are people. I know plenty of those people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I asked this to everybody.
Cool.
If you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
Honestly, I would have said take a fucking gap year. And this goes for anybody of any field. Do not go straight from high school to college. I understand it's hard and you're probably going to have to live with the rents for another year, but like, you're not a real person when you're in high school. You're just not. And you don't know how the world works. And if you put yourself in an environment that sounds dreamy and exotic and crazy cool, but you don't really have a firm grasp of how the nature of the world works, it's just kind of going to lead to a bunch of disappointment. Like, I mean, this is exactly why literally 3/4 of people who have college degrees end up pursuing different careers than whatever they majored in college. It's exactly that reason. And college, for me, it was a very motivational time. It was a time of understanding a lot of things, but I would also observe people around me where, not necessarily at my school in particular, because I think everybody at Peabody is generally pretty driven and like hardworking, but like, for a lot of other people, it's just kind of like a foggy haze of, I don't know what's going on. There's so many parties. What did I drink last night? And it's like, but you're not in the real world. You're not. And like, to have something so finite and say, this is what I want to do when you don't even know what goes on outside of these doors, it's a huge deal. So yeah, I would say to 15-year-old me, take a fucking gap year, bitch. Just do it. You're not going to regret it. You're not. You're going to work in a restaurant probably, but you're not going to regret it. You're going to be a real person and it's going to be real fun. But yeah.
I took a gap year.
See, prime example. It's what you
Prime example
of what is correct to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not coming for you.
Who knows if it was the right choice? I mean,
well,
who's to say?
At the end of the day, it is fate. And I for sure don't regret going to Peabody. I don't regret not taking a gap year. I think I for sure would not be the person I am today if I had changed my mind or gone to a different institution. It was actually a last minute decision for me to go to Peabody. I was going to go to a school in New York instead, but then I was like, gotta go here.
Yeah. And with Peace in Raleigh, I did the whole program online, and it was honestly because they had the online program that worked, for whatever reason. I just didn't want to go on campus. Like, I just didn't want to. I was playing with the band, and I had my acting career that I was still building at the time. And, it's funny that you say that, because I guess now that I think about it, yeah, I'm a big believer in fate. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Fate's amazing. It's impactful. And you did the right thing for you. I think I personally did the right thing for me. Yeah. I would have maybe wanted to take a gap year just so that I could put my head in a real world perspective. But, here we are. And I don't regret a thing. Not at all. Not for a second.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. This was the highlight of my day today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess that's not a huge compliment because I was just doing nothing but God. But like, for sure, maybe even go as far as to say this is the highlight of my week. Thank you so much for having me, Jason. Yeah, dude, you're awesome.
Wow. That's incredible.
Something.
Well, where can everybody find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at jsbach.fachup. Like, so that is
I've always loved that handle, by the way. I always thought that was great.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, FACH is a word in German that means voice type. And I just felt like that was a really kind of applicable way to appropriately say back the fuck up. I could say Bach the fuck up. But I don't know if this is forward facing or not, but that is
it's forward. We're in business.
Awesome. Follow me on Insta.
And we'll have all the links in the description box below and to the sides.
Awesome. Great. Cool.
That should do it.
Yay. Oh, thank you for having me again. You're awesome, dude.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
You guys been watching the Jason Damico show, listening to the Jason Damico show. Check out Marie's social media handles, and we'll have those in the description box below to the sides. And we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.